Hi students, me again. I just wanted to let you know of some things that I've uploaded to Connect. Now the first thing is posters that you will see in class displayed today when you come in. These posters are from the English Teachers Association of Western Australia, and they cover some of the key words and key syllabus concepts. So if you're looking on my screen now, you will get an idea of what I'm talking about: perspective, voice, genre, types of text, for example. So these would be good to take down and put into the back of your book for a glossary. Also good to print out if you wanted to print them out into A4 and put them around your room at home. Some nerds will like to do that. I think it's a great idea. I'm one of those nerds. Now I want to just bring it back to this, because this is what I want to be discussing today with regard to V for Vendetta. So we know when we're discussing genre, we're looking at two different things. Genre can be a broad category and based on the form and structure of a text. So we can look at things such as feature films, biography, and novels, and we need to consider the genre conventions of those forms and structures. But genre can also be categorized based on the content and style, such as romance, true crime, comedy, or dystopian films. We know then that we can then subcategorize down and down and down, and you can see some examples here. So if we think of the dystopian genre, it's somewhat a subcategory of the sci-fi category. Another example that could be linked to dystopia is post-apocalyptic, which is what we'll be looking at with our novel text, perhaps. So speaking of genre, and in particular dystopian genre, I want to just take you now to another document that I've uploaded to Connect. Just hopefully I'll get it right for your viewing. Here we go. It's called Dystopian Conventions, and it's on your Connect page. So I'll give you a moment, pause the video to find it now and download it. Now students, once you have that, great to have it handy, print it out and make some highlightings on it, do whatever you need to do to ensure that you understand what is put forth on this sheet. Now, we start off with a definition and characteristics. So a dystopia is the reverse of a utopia. A utopia is very much like a Stepford Wives situation. I don't know if many of you have any of you have seen that film, but a utopia is in all aspects, perfect place. Political situation's perfect, the people are perfect, both physically, mentally. There's not one issue wrong with the society at all. Does a utopia exist? Well, questionable. Probably not. It's a fictitious place. But dystopias are often futuristic, imagined universe where society is controlled and very oppressive. So lots of films and books have been coming out in the last sort of 10-15 years that explore dystopic settings and dystopic environments that are controlled by totalitarian government systems. V for Vendetta was one of them, released in 2005. It really sort of started that movement towards those dystopic texts, but it wasn't the first. If you look back to George Orwell's 1984, that's explored many of the same themes and issues that are current in the V for Vendetta film and texts of 2017 and beyond. What is characteristic of a dystopic or dystopian society are things that we've kind of alluded to in the last lecture, looking at totalitarian forms of government. So propaganda is used to control citizens, the information, independent thought and freedom are restricted. Okay, and we've seen that, we hopefully see that in the text today when we're watching it in class. Often in these dystopian societies, there's a figurehead or a concept that is worshipped. Now, in this, it's both. You've got the chancellor, very German, Nazi Germany-esque, having a chancellor, but also the idea of their saying unity is, a concept worshipped by citizens. There's that fear that citizens are perceived to be under constant surveillance. The fingermen have that role of surveilling and, ensuring obedience and that protection element. With this text as well, the citizens have a fear of the outside world. We're post a sort of a world disaster, and they do have that fear of what else is out there, and that we can't question the status quo. Moving on, some of these don't necessarily apply to V for Vendetta, but you would expect citizens to live in a dehumanized world. I think Mad Max Fury Road, or The Road by Cormac McCarthy. The natural world is banished and distrusted. The natural world is depleted of its energy stores or resources, such as oil, for example, and all world has gone into the chaos and anarchy. And something has to build itself up, and often, what builds up is the dictators in those totalitarian systems who offer us a glimmer of hope for the many people left behind. Now, for those people left behind, they often have to conform to uniform expectations, not uniform in terms of the clothing, but a singular set of expectations. If we think of Mao Zedong in communist China in the 1920s, 30s during the Great Leap Forward, you just need to look quite literally at their uniforms, their haircuts, their manner of speaking, their education. Everything was uniform, meaning just one way, and the expectations were the same of every people. And I suppose that was done in an attempt to prevent and limit individuality and dissent amongst the society. If we go back to that and now look at this last point, society is an illusion of a perfect utopian world, an illusion created. So that illusion of this perfect utopian, this dystopian society, is created and maintained by those in charge. So it's clearly not utopian from us as the reader watching this film, but for those living in that I suppose dystopian reality, it's very utopian in that there's no corruption, or at least evident from what they can see as a general citizen. But we know as an outside viewer looking in that it's very corrupt. It's definitely not a utopic in any nature at all. Now, often in these dystopian universes or societies, there's some kind of control that's being placed upon the citizens. Now, as you can see from this point here, most dystopian works present a world in which oppressive societal control and the illusion of a perfect society are maintained through one or more of the following types of control. And you'll start to see some examples here, and this will make perfect sense. So we've got corporate control, where large corporations are controlling society through the mechanisms that gain that control and maintain that obedience, such as advertising and the media. Minority Report, if anyone's seen it, great film that explores that, and Running Man. The next one, bureaucratic control. So society is controlled by mindless bureaucracy through a tangle of red tape. Okay, Brazil is a good example, a very old text, not one that we sort of really look at anymore. Following on to the next one, technological control. There's some great text examples here when that society is slowly being controlled through computers, robots, scientific means, and the wonderful examples of text that I've studied before with students, The Matrix, Terminator, iRobot. And then finally, this idea of religious controls or philosophical control. So, society is controlled through an ideology, and it's often a dictatorship or a theocratic government. So, some of these work or stand alone, particularly if you look at this example here with technological control. The Matrix, Terminator, and iRobot pretty much is a standalone piece about technological control in the 21st century and beyond. But if you think of V for Vendetta, it does combine elements of all of these different types, but predominantly we're looking at the religious or philosophical control, where ideology and political ideology is leading and controlling the citizens. And finally, if we now look at the protagonist, the dystopian protagonist, so in our film it's V. These summarize him perfectly, these 4 dot points down below. So he often feels trapped and is struggling to escape, correct. Often questioning existing social and political systems, yes, obviously through his acts, etc. And he believes or feels that something is terribly wrong with society in which he or she lives. And we know from his actions in the Guy Fawkes Day and wanting to blow up the parliamentary system and completely alter the change of course of London, that he fits and conforms to that dystopian protagonist perfectly. And lastly, if you think about him as the protagonist that wants to change and wants the audience to recognise the dystopic nature of the world that he's living in, he is that medium that gets us to that point. So students, I would like you to download this sheet, put it into your books, keep it, study it, and think about it in relation to the film. Thank you.